Jainism. Let's start with the no karma mantra. Namo Arihantanam, Namo Siddhanam, Namo Ayaryanam, Namo Ujjayanam, Namo Loe Savasahunam, Eso Panchanamo Karo, Sava Pava Parasano, Mangalancha Savesim, Paramam Ave Mangalam. Stress is a feeling of emotional or physical tension. It can come from any event or even a thought that makes you feel frustrated, angry, or nervous. And there are two types of stress: acute stress and chronic stress.
Hello, good morning.
Acute stress is a short-term stress, and it goes away quickly. So you feel it in response to, let's say, if you slam on the brakes and get in a car accident, or if you're having an argument with somebody, you feel that acute stress. Chronic stress is a stress that lasts longer. So you feel chronic stress if you have money problems, or if you have an unhappy marriage, and any type of stress that goes on for weeks or months, we call chronic stress. And then sometimes we can become so used to chronic stress that we don't realize that we're living a life of stress. Both types of stress can damage your mental and physical health, but being chronically stressed can leave you feeling fatigued, sap your ability to concentrate, and give you headaches and digestive problems. So what are the signs? If sometimes we don't know that we're under chronic stress, what are the signs? Diarrhea or constipation, forgetfulness, if you have frequent aches and pains. What happened here?
Frequent aches in what?
Aches and pains.
Oh, aches and pains.
If you have headaches, if you lack energy or focus, if you have sexual problems, a stiff jaw or neck, if you are tired, if you have trouble sleeping, or if you sleep too much, if you have an upset stomach, if you use alcohol or drugs to relax, or if you have a lot of weight loss or weight gain, then that's signs of chronic stress in your life. It looks like we dropped, so let me try to switch the Wi-Fi. See if that helps.
You can start hotspot if you want.
I tried that, yeah.
Oh, you did?
Okay, so how does stress manifest in your body? So your body reacts to stress by releasing hormones, specifically adrenaline or epinephrine and cortisol. Adrenaline increases your heart rate, breathing, and sharpens your focus. Cortisol increases your blood sugar and gives you quick energy, and it suppresses your non-essential functions like digestion or the immune response. So in small, short bursts, this is good, right? It helps you react quickly to danger. It helps you stay alert and focused. And it heals you faster, and it mobilizes your energy. So that's good, right? It's good to have these things in your body. But if you have chronic stress, you have these things all the time. Your bodies stay alert, even though there's no danger. And so that puts you at risk of problems of chronic stress like high blood pressure, heart disease, diabetes, obesity, depression or anxiety, and sometimes menstrual problems. Okay, so questions or comments about that. So we talked about what stress is. We talked about the two types of stress, chronic stress and acute stress. We talked about the signs that you might have too much stress in your life. And we talked about how stress manifests in your body. Questions or comments on that before we go to how to deal with stress? Okay, so let's talk about how to deal with stress in your life. Well, who has a stressed life here? Everybody? Yeah, okay, a lot of people. Yeah, great. Yeah, everybody, including myself. So here's how to deal with stress in your life. You try to eliminate the stressors. That is, you try to eliminate the causes of stress. And first, of course, we have to identify the causes of stress, which is not always easy. And once you identify them, it's not always easy to get rid of them. It's easy to say, change your job. It's very hard to change your job, right? And of course, we can't get rid of our children, who might be a big source of stress in our life, right? But there are some you can eliminate. So identify some, and then work towards eliminating the ones that you can eliminate. Cultivate social support. That is, reach out to friends and family when you do feel stressed, and listen and have them listen and sympathize with you, and you do the same for them, right? Having a good social network, the people that have a good social network are less stressed. Seek out good nutrition, okay? When you are stressed, those chemicals, adrenaline and cortisol, can create sugar and fat cravings in your body. And so we seek out those foods when we're stressed. And the problem is that the high cortisol combined with high sugar leads to fat deposited around our internal organs. This is the worst type of fat. This is called visceral fat, and they interfere with our health. And so the thing to remember is you have to eat a rainbow of fruits and veggies. Eat red things, eat green things, eat blue things, eat all sorts of colors, okay? You don't have to know about vitamin A and D, and just try to eat a lot of colors. And that will help out your nutrition. The next thing to do to combat stress is to relax your muscles. Okay, so stress causes your muscles to tense, and that can lead, and if you have constantly tense muscles, and sometimes you don't even know you have them, that leads to tension, headaches, backaches, and general fatigue. Okay, so let's try to relax our muscles now. So get in a comfortable position. Close your eyes, and let's go from the bottom to the top, right? Progressive muscle relaxation. First, relax the muscles in your feet. Next, move your awareness to your calves and relax the muscles there. Next, move your awareness to your thighs and relax the muscles there. Let your tension slip away from your body and into the floor. Next, relax your back. There are lots of muscles there you don't know you use all the time. Now try your hands. You know you use those all the time. But try your forearms too, which you never really think about. Next, relax the muscles in your arms and shoulders. And the big one is the neck. There are muscles there, and it's hard to relax them. It's very hard. But we have to try. Next, relax the muscles in your face and jaw. And the top of your head. Okay, do you feel different? Anybody feel different? Yeah? How so?
I feel more just relaxed overall.
Right.
Think better.
Right.
That's cool.
And that's not obvious, right? That there is a connection between the relaxation that your muscles feel and the way your mind works, right? So that's an important discovery that you've made. if you haven't made it before. Okay, so there are more things we can do to eliminate stress in our life. We can practice mindfulness and meditation. I talk to you guys about that all the time. Okay, I don't think we need to go over that again. Next, we can protect your sleep. Okay, so the stress you feel affects your sleep, and when you lack sleep, that affects the stress you feel for a vicious feedback cycle, right? Try to have a consistent sleep routine. Wind down before you go to sleep. Avoid screens. Take your phone out right now and find a setting on your phone. It's either called night shift, or it's called blue light, or sometimes it's called night light. Find that setting on your phone and turn it on. You may hate it at first. You might hate it for about a week, okay? But then you'll get used to it. And what it does is eliminates the blue light that emanates from your phone at night by making the screen a warmer temperature. So that will help you sleep if you can't seem to put down your phone at night. Okay, exercise. Exercise is one of the best ways to reduce your stress. People don't like it because it seems like you're stressing yourself out, stressing your body out, but of course you're not. You're exercising your body. I guess you could think of it as a form of short-term stress, but it leads to long-term health. And going to the gym, unfortunately, is a source of stress for some people. So you just have to move past that. Okay, so exercising is going to help you reduce stress. And I know you've heard this before. I know you've heard eat right, exercise, sleep well. I know that you know that. I'm not telling you new information, right? But we have to do these things to take care of ourselves. Next, get out in nature. Some people may not know that, especially young people, that when we see green things, when we see trees and plants, when we take a walk outside, that helps our mood. That elevates our mood. And so even setting a background on your phone or your computer of a nature scene will help elevate your mood. Keep your hobbies. Some people drop their hobbies when they are stressed because they focus on their work, or they focus on trying to, instead of eliminating the stressors, they run on the treadmill of trying to accomplish their goals only to be given more goals in result. Keep your hobbies. They're the things that keep you less stressed. Set boundaries. Learn to say no to people. It's very hard to say no to our family, but we have to try to do it. I have since gotten over feeling guilty of saying no to my kids, and I say no to them all the time. But I know that by setting my boundaries, then we have a healthier relationship overall and in the long term. In case you didn't know, you're allowed to have time for yourself. You're allowed to have 1 hour every day to work towards your goals, whether they be mental goals, physical goals, spiritual goals, relationship goals, family goals, anything like that. If you don't have an hour a day, or if you feel like when you get home, you're busy until you get to bed, then you can say no to your family. You can say no to your kids between 8 and 9 p.m. and say, no, I have to work on this. I can help you out after, I can help you out before, but I have to work on this. And you'll be surprised at how they adapt to that schedule if you keep it consistent. Reframe your thinking. So a lot of times, unfortunately, I'm afflicted with this. We have stress about stress, which is the most unfair thing in the entire world, right? I am stressed out that I am stressed out. Okay, this like meta stress, okay? There's no reason I should be experiencing stress in my life. I have a very easy life. But for some reason, I have stress in my life, and I'm worried about that stress because I'm not supposed to be having that stress in my life, right? And so that's the worst. So working on your mental is one way to help with the stress, because how you perceive the stress has a lot to do with how you feel about it. And reframing how you perceive the stress is called CBT, or cognitive behavioral therapy, and it has helped quite a few people. That is, how you think about the things that stress you out. And of course, it's always good to seek help from a professional. sometimes we think like, oh, people don't know what I'm going through, or oh, if I sit with a professional, it's going to be embarrassing, or I'm uncomfortable with it. We are learning a lot about mental health, and just talking to people and talking to a professional and understanding that people know that something is wrong and that you're not alone helps. So never be afraid to talk to a doctor about your stress. Okay, so questions or comments about that? We learned a bunch of ways to kind of help with stress. So what's the difference between stress and anxiety? Okay, they're both emotional responses, but stress is usually caused by an external trigger. Okay, that can be short-term or chronic stress. Anxiety is defined by persistent or excessive worries that persist even if the stressor goes away. A lot of times we're worried about the future. And there's a couple types of anxieties that people have. One is generalized anxiety disorder. So if you have hard to control worries about the future, and it lasts for months and perhaps years, you may have that. Another is panic disorder, or sometimes people call them panic attacks, right? So you're suddenly dizzy and sweaty, and it suddenly is hard to breathe. Okay, so we might call that a panic disorder, which is an anxiety disorder. So those are treated in a lot of different ways. If you find yourself having that, definitely seek a doctor for anxiety disorders. But what does that have to do with Jainism? We're 30 minutes into Jainism class and we didn't talk about Jainism once. How can Jainism help us with our stress?
It's the same thing, I guess. Stress. If we are not if we follow Jainism, the stress, it teaches us how to minimize these things, and automatically we are less stressed out.
How
and
so?
If we are doing all these things, what you just talked about, it is what we are leading to Jainism, because we will be more calm, so we will not get angry. We will try to stay true. We will try to stick with truthfulness and all these things.
Right, so you mentioned anger, right? So if we realize that anger is our enemy and we're fighting to eliminate anger from our life, then anger, of course, causes stress. Anger causes stress when we feel angry, and then it causes compound stress whenever we see the reactions of people around us after we get angry, right? So that's great.
I think some other principles like eating food before sunset. That to me is a nice way of. It will help you reduce stress over the long term.
Right. So it will help us sleep, right?
Yeah.
And of course, we know that when we get good sleep, we are less stressed.
Exactly. Fasting is encouraged in Jainism, which I think in the long term again helps with stress relief.
How does fasting help with stress relief?
Because fasting has physical benefits over the long term, so that will basically help you. Maybe stress relief is not the right term. It's like, how can you physically overcome stress over the long term? I think that's where it potentially helps.
Right.
Could fasting maybe also help mental clarity?
Yeah.
And sometimes that
Focus.
mental clarity in a stressful situation, you might be able to see things from a different perspective.
Right. Because when we are hungry, we make bad decisions and we lash out. We're hangry, right? We lash out at people, right?
Yep.
And so if we fast and we know that, well, this hunger is temporary, it's going to, then the next time it's a regular day and we're hungry, we'll know it's temporary and we won't lash out at people, right? So that's great.
Less accumulation of things.
Right. Aparigraha, right? When we have less things, well, we're less stressed. If we let things go, especially material things, well, if they don't cause us these kashayas, then we're less stressed, right? And we can let things go, and we're not worried about them, right? That's great.
Same is true with non-attachment.
Right, exactly. That's right. When we're not attached to things or people or things like that, we'll lead a life that's full of less stress.
So one question, is there any form of stress that's good stress?
There is a stress that's called good stress. It's called eustress, EU stress. It's spelled EUSTRESS. And they say it's the stress that, the reason I didn't mention it is because they say it's the type of stress that leads to productive things. Like, oh, I have a, like when you're at work, have you ever had like the right amount of work? It wasn't too much that you like were overwhelmed, and it wasn't too little where you're like just sitting around. It's like it led you to an even pace of work. That's that kind of idea of eustress, where yeah, you're stressed, but it just means you're working and you're humming along and you're in that flow state. That's what they call good stress. Well, the karma theory can help us about stress, right? Because it'll help us realize that, well, even when we feel helpless, that we're in control of our actions, and especially we're in control of our reactions. We might not be in control of bearing the fruits of our karma, but we're in control of our reactions. And of course, that reminds us of cognitive behavioral therapy, right? And also mindfulness and meditation. We talk about that a bunch. Jainism talks about that a bunch, right? We talked about the 4 kashayas. How about the 5 vows? Non-lying, non-stealing. What are the other vows? Anybody remember?
Celibacy, truth, non-attachment.
Non-violence, non-lying,
Non-attachment.
non-attachment, certain forms of celibacy.
Stealing.
Right. So how about those? Do you think if we practice those, we can eliminate stress from our life? Sure. If the least stressed person is the one that doesn't have to keep track of their lives, right? And if you don't steal, you don't have anything to worry about, you know. If you lead a non-violent life, you're not worried that things from your past will catch up to you and cause you violence in your life, right? Well, it turns out literally everything about Jainism will help you deal with stress. Because we just covered all of Jainism, right? So if you have a stressed life, then open this book and it will help you. And start anywhere. You could start with anywhere and that will help you with stress in your life. Everybody raised their hand that said they were stressed in their life. Tell me, what are the stressors in your life?
It's like going to work or not going to work. Both are stressful.
Right. Work is stressful. There are particular ways to deal with stress at work. One of the things to do is to write down your stressors at work. Okay? Remember when we were talking about food and we were talking about, well, how do I do this diet and exercise stuff? And the first thing I said was to just write down everything you eat during the day. Even if you don't do anything with that information, it'll just surprise you how much you eat or when you ate or things like that. So at work, write down the stressors you have at work. They might be people over you, people under you. It might be IT doesn't get back to you. It might be different things, right? Even if you don't do anything with that information, it will be helpful to you to just write it down. Okay, another way we can deal with stress at work is to develop healthy responses, okay? To try to understand people and respond in a way that works for them and you. Different people respond to different things. Establish boundaries. That works at home as well as work. You can establish boundaries at work. You can decide not to check your phone after hours. Okay? And once you do that, they're not going to fire you over it. And if they do fire you over it, they'll give you a warning first. Okay? So just wait for the warning before you decide to start doing that, all right? And people will adapt, you know. They're like, oh yeah, he'll get back to you at 6. He'll get back to you at 7 a.m. tomorrow, you know. I've seen the email from him at 7 a.m. all the time, so I'm not worried about him not responding, right? You can set boundaries at work, and they will adapt to you. They won't fire you for setting boundaries.
Something I did as part of this class, this was a few years ago,
obviously I haven't stopped checking emails, I do check. But something that I did was that I turned off for notifications.
Yeah.
And I've done that maybe a couple of years ago or 3 years ago. But this was as part of this class, and I think that's great, right? Because otherwise, when you have notification, you immediately get distracted,
Right.
and you feel like you want to
Check it.
check it out and see what's going on. But that's one change I've done. But still, I go and check. But that's more like when I want to do that
Right.
instead of.
So you're only partially a slave to your phone. You're not a full-on slave.
Partial, more than partial, I would say. But yes. Yeah.
On the same note, in Outlook, there's a setting called as scheduled send. So if there's
Yeah,
something
yeah.
important that has popped up, I write it down, but I don't hit send. I
Right.
schedule send it, so
Right.
people understand that I am not read it in the after hour. As you put it.
Right. So there is ways to help out with work. But you said when you don't work, you feel stressed too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're no,
Yeah.
you're no control,
Yeah.
right? So
Right.
there's a lot of things you're mixed up, and you're working through all of those things, and all of a sudden you go on vacation or you go on a trip, work trip.
Yeah.
You're disconnected, so you stay stressed on that.
Right. How can we help out Bhavin?
Let's all go together on the trip. No, but I think what you mentioned is very helpful. I think writing it down beforehand helps. I used to do that a long time ago. You just trigger that thought that every day before I leave the work, I write it down what's going to be my tomorrow look like. That 10 minutes of end of the day work actually helps me plan out really good.
Right.
And I stopped, I don't know why I stopped, but I stopped that. I may have to pick it up. But writing it down does help, that for sure.
I like that idea of a leaving work routine. I don't have that. You know, like we have a bedtime routine, and that tells our body, signifies to our body and mind that it's time to sleep, so they get. If I have a leaving work routine, I can let work stay at work, right? If I have my routine, if I do this and this in the 10 minutes before I leave, then my mind understands, oh, it's time. Everything at work, I'm leaving at work. So I really like that. I might do that.
For me, the most stress is work politics, right? I think
Right.
that's one thing that is always tricky.
Right.
Yeah, it's the same thing for me, right? Like, but one of the things that I read recently was, I read about work politics, a lot about disagreements which stress you out, us out, right? But what I read was that if somebody disagrees with you, doesn't mean that they hate you,
Yeah, that's
right? And I think that gave a very good perspective in terms of the work politics. Politics in general is always going to be there, family, work, you name it, right? But it's keeping that perspective. At the end of the day, we are all made out of the same stardust, you know. So, it's
One thing that might help is, remember we talked about, well, one of the ways to eliminate stress from our life is having social support, right? People you can talk to and that you can depend on, and you do the same for them. We can also have that at work. We can have social support at work, a network of people at work that we talk with about work, and we lean on them and they lean on us, and that might help with the stressor of work politics, to have that.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Do you think there are some professions where it's harder to kind of leave work at work? Like I would say, like I'm a physician, and there are times where like I'm done with my work, and then I go home, and then someone contacts me because they need help with a family member who's sick or something. It's sometimes so hard to disconnect. Like I try to, but it's also some degree of what's ingrained in you in training that, you know, someone is sick, you help. And so sometimes it's hard to disconnect. Like you try to, but then there's more than one venue of questions. Like it's not just work. There's also family, friends, extended people that need help. And
Absolutely.
it's hard.
Of course, that's right. There are jobs that are harder to leave at work. If you're a plumber, it's easy to leave it at work because you're not there anymore. You're not in front of the problem. If you're a doctor, it's harder because your family members are asking you to check out this thing that's wrong with them when you're at a party or something, something like that. Or you think about things and, you know, it's your job to diagnose, right? And so when you're not at the office doing the paperwork, doing that, then your mind works on the harder problems of those things. Of course, yeah. And for people like you, it's going to be harder, unfortunately, to leave work at work. And we have to develop better strategies to do that. Without kind of, we have to navigate that, right? We can't piss off our family members who are like, well, you can't see me or whatever. This is not, I have to come to your office to do this or whatever. But yeah, it's going to be a challenge. So does anybody have any?
Just one suggestion.
Sure.
If that aspect of, you come back home and then you're addressing to these things, if the perception towards that is not as you, that's work. That's more of inclusiveness. Maybe you wouldn't. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of burnout amongst physicians and people in healthcare, primarily because of this. Like, they don't see it as work. It's like almost everyone says, "Oh, it's a calling." But I think at the same time, your mind then never gets a break from it, and you can't automatically as much as you. And I think it's a balance, as you were saying, of where can you feel comfortable drawing a line and saying hey, I need some time. I can't get to this right now. I feel like my own work colleagues are really good at that now, because we all have experienced the downside of constantly being on. And so now if I get a text from a work colleague and it's after 5, the text always starts with, I'm really sorry to bother you when you're, after work. So at least there's a recognition. They're trying. They still are going to bother me, but it's at least they're recognizing that, okay, everyone needs some time away to kind of rejuvenate so they can come back to work and be present.
Absolutely. So for you, some of the things that I would recommend are keep your hobbies, and keep your hobbies daily ones that you can do every day without your phone, right? So that time will be, because perhaps 70 to 80% of your waking time is thinking about work, then that time you have to carve out and guard jealously, right? And it may be family time that you enjoy the family time, and then that time is not work time. So your mind realizes that, right? Protecting sleep is going to be more important. Exercising is going to be more important. And exercising is a great time to not be at work, because you're thinking about something else. So certain one of the things that we talked about would be more beneficial for leaving work at work, especially when you can't leave it at the office.
One suggestion, maybe I don't know. Maybe you can just set a time okay, well, family, friends, whoever needs help. I have 1 hour session on Saturdays or Friday, or just once a week.
Family office
You can
hours.
only fall sick. You can only fall sick during that 1 hour.
No, other advice. Sick is different, other advice. I have this health issue.
So stress is also a problem for our children, right? They have a different kind of stress, but what it's important to do, it's important not to minimize that stress. You may think it's not a big deal if your kid is worrying about, his friend that doesn't talk to him anymore, or it's not a big deal, if they're going to a different school. You changed school 5 times when you were a kid, you turned out fine. But remember that it's not like a container that can be filled, right? People experience stress differently. So one person can handle a certain amount of stress, and that would completely break another person, right? And so because it has this subjective quality to it, don't try to minimize the stress that your children are feeling. But there are ways to combat that, right? Kids need 9 to 12 hours of sleep at night. If they're 6 to 12, they need 8 to 10 if they're a teenager. They need exercise, of course, just like you do. You need to be that sounding board for the kids to talk about, right? Some of us just don't have that relationship with our kids where we talk about our feelings. But it's not too late, okay? It's not too late to change that relationship with your children, to talk about their feelings and your feelings, and to change that long-term relationship, okay? With kids, you can make some time for fun. Another thing that helps with kids is writing about it. Kids are so used to writing. We're out of the practice of writing. We don't really write anything anymore, especially not on a piece of paper. But kids are very used to it. So give them a diary, okay? Give them a journal. It will be fun for them, and they can write about their problems, and that helps too. If you don't have anybody to talk about, talking to your diary is a good substitute. All right, and then there are kind of kid-appropriate ways to do mindfulness and meditation as well. It benefits kids. So it's important that we think about how stress affects our children, and it's most important to think of it from their perspective, because it might seem like no big deal to you, but that's the worst problem they might ever have been dealing with in their life so far. So it's very important. One of the important things we can do is model how to deal with stress, because as you know, kids look at more what we do than what we say, which is good. So if we deal with stress appropriately, then they will deal with stress appropriately. Sometimes, now when I say don't minimize it, I don't mean go in like a knight in shining armor and deal with all the problems in your kid's life. Well, it'll be easy. Just stop talking to that person. Well, they see that person at school in every class that they go to. It's not that easy to, So let them kind of solve their own problems. Be a sounding board or things like that. Be there for them emotionally, but don't necessarily try to problem solve for them. Teach them how to ask the right questions. That's one of the most important things you can do, right? Teach them why is that person saying that? That's causing you trouble. What does that person gain out of it, right? And you can, the other most important thing you can do is to teach them to combat negative self-talk. They don't even know they're going through negative self-talk. They're not even aware that such a thing exists. But you know it exists because you fought that battle. You have to teach your kids to don't say, I'm just no good at math. That is negative self-talk. That is, there's nothing about them that is not good at math. That's just an excuse, right? That they don't want to learn, right? Or I hate my hair, right? Or I hate the way I look, right? We have to teach them coping mechanisms to combat that negative self-talk. And it's easy for us to say, it is hard for us to do. Okay? Everything that we've talked about so far is easy to say when we're sitting down here. It's hard to do when we get out there. And that, of course, is the ultimate test. And of course, this class will always be about increasing the quality of your life using Jain principles. And so tell me, what other stressors do you have in your life?
The unknown.
Fear of the unknown. How it will turn out. Are you one of those people that looks at the end of the book first and is like, oh, it's okay, and then you read the rest of the book? Yeah, that's a big one. Not sure how it'll turn out. And we're worried about that. We're worried about the future. Well, it's going to be okay. And I know that because you're a good person. And because you're a good person, you attract good karma more than bad karma, and that will get you far. So I'm telling you it's going to be okay. I know that it's easy for me to say not to worry, but it's hard for you to actually not worry. And so one of the things we have to do is start believing we're a soul. Once you believe you're a soul, once you realize everything in this book is true, then you'll realize you're right. I do have more good karma than bad karma. It will be okay. So that will help. That will help. Another thing that will help is we can channel our worries about the future into action today. So if you're worried about what your money situation is going to be like in the future, channel that into reading about saving today, reading about investing today. Instead of just worrying, use that worry to channel it into action, right? Another thing you can do is to realize that, there's a sphere of influence you have about the things you can control, and a much greater sphere of influence about the things you can't control. And once you have controlled everything you can control, then you have to let it go. Then you have to be confident that you can react to whatever comes up later. Because when it comes up later, then it will be in your control. But right now, if you try to pre-react to things you don't know about, you're just spinning your wheels. You're not in control of that. So very common one. I know I gave you kind of a scattershot approach to try to deal with that, but hopefully one of those works for you.
I want to tie it back to the kids conversation, the point that you raised, right? One thing I think kids are very good at is living in the present moment, right? Unfortunately, as they become adults, we worry more about the past and the future. We forget about living in the present.
Right.
And they say, right, we 90% of the times worry about things that don't even happen. You know. So one of the things we can learn from kids is to actually live in the present moment. Like for example, if we were all to think about just this class and this moment, with Timir, with this, that's so nice, so amazing, right? But in our heads, we have like what somebody told us 2 weeks ago, what is going to happen tomorrow at work. Like those things are running in our subconscious mind in the back, which actually creates stress, right? But if we intentionally try to practice living in the present, drawing inspiration from our kids, I think that will be a huge stress reliever, I feel like.
Right.
The things is not going our ways and we put a lot of efforts and you don't get the appreciation or whatever, the recognition you don't get.
Right.
So that's also one kind of stress.
Yeah, your life is not going how you want it. Right? You thought that it would be something different.
Yeah.
And you had worked for something different, and perhaps that fell through.
Right.
And it's not going how you want it.
Yes.
And that's a source of stress. Because what did I do all that work for, or what am I going to do in the future? And then you ruminate on that, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is where the Bhagavad Gita, right? Like, I know this is the Jainism class, but I think we have a lot of parallels with Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says that what you have the right to is you have the right to work. You do not have the right to bear the fruits of your work. It's as long as we absorb that, we.
Yeah, but the back of the mind.
That's right, but that's what it plays with you, right?
Right.
So if your life is not going how you want, then I think the thing to do is to think about what's in your control and not in your control.
Exactly.
And I think, I know we talked about that, but I think obviously some of these apply to multiple situations. And also how you react to things, right? You're in control of your reactions. You're in a battle with anger, ego, deceit, and greed. And maybe it's the ego, that's causing you to feel that way. And maybe it's the greed that's causing you to feel that way, that I deserve something better. I deserve to have what I worked for, or I thought my life would be better or different. Maybe it's those things that are getting in our way, and we can't let go of that. And that is causing us to not be able to be in the present moment and to change our lives in the current moment, because it's paralyzing us almost in a way where I think about the life that I should be having instead of living the life that I'm currently having. How about from our friends online? Tell me about the stressors in your life. No, we're shy? Okay.
I think one of the things, Timur, that always I've learned it from this class, from you specifically, that has been a huge stress reliever is you always remind us that if you want to retire, all of us in this class can retire now.
Right.
Right? And if you keep that perspective in mind, that is such a huge stress reliever in itself.
Right. You can always walk away.
You can
Right?
walk
You're not
away.
burdened.
Exactly. So that really helps.
That's good. That's good. And remember, you have that option no matter how much money you have or don't have. You always have the ability to walk away. As you're in control of your own soul. We're here to help each other. We're here to be here for each other. So tell me the stressors that are happening in your life. I told you the stressors that are happening in my life, so it's not like I'm hiding the ball here.
I think one thing you really notice a lot is getting credible information. Like, that's a big stressor because you're like following things that your friends might give you like stock market tips, but like
Right.
how like are they just kind of like talking in general, like basic, and it's not really something you should make a decision for, or like
Right.
those things are a big, because you're like, okay, what do I actually like listen to?
Right. So that is a very big stressor because we are constantly inundated with untruths.
Right.
Okay? And how to tell the truth from not the truth. And I have a great answer for you. And the answer is in this book. Everything in this book is the truth. Okay? Everything not in this book may not be the truth. Okay? Now, you guys laugh, and yeah, it's a little bit funny, but this kind of media literacy is important to understand. That is, how can I tell the difference between a fact and an opinion? How can I tell the difference between what somebody is trying to get me to do or what I want to do? And one of the ways we can do that is ask, well, why is this person telling me this? What agenda does this person have to tell me this? And then if we can kind of ask that in our everyday life, and we can say, oh, this is my friend, he's a part of this group, and this quote just came from this group that he is, or he just shared it with everybody. So I can ignore that. But this person is giving me personalized advice. She cares about me. She's telling me, don't date this guy. He has these problems that I've seen. And she knows me. And so that's good information. Okay? She doesn't have an agenda. Her agenda is she's my friend. That's her agenda. And especially with news, right? We don't know what news to trust and what news not to trust. Well, what will certainly help is if you follow the money, right? How does this news source get their money? How are they funded? What is their business model? That will help you determine whether they're a credible source or not a credible source. Obviously, all the propaganda you see is untrue, but there's so much of it, it's hard not to be inundated with it, right? And it helps to understand the difference between the truth and not truth. What helps to understand that is to understand what matters and what doesn't matter. The things that don't matter are things that you can't control, okay? The only thing you can probably control about a war going on in the Middle East is, well, if you want to donate money to a particular group. That's the only kind of control you can exert over the situation. So when you hear news about there's constant violence going on in the Middle East, and there are children that are dying, and you want to help, it doesn't help for you to worry about a conflict going on there. What will help is if you worry about, let me research a credible group where I feel this way and I would like to help, and let me put my energy into researching a credible group that has a proven track record of making a difference, and I can donate money to that group. And that's how you can help. So that's kind of one example of how do I let the intersection of what I control, what matters, and what is true. So only when you find those things, then you can feel good about understanding what's going on around you.
One
You
simple
heard about
formula.
Yeah.
Sorry. One simple formula for social media: if something is free, then you are the product.
Right.
That's the simple formula.
It's your attention that is the currency of the internet.
Yeah, I was talking about thinking about writing it down things, but then it doesn't stop there. I think we still need to do, the Eisenhower matrix, important, non-important, urgent, and non-urgent one, right? Yeah. If it's important and urgent, that means you're in a crisis. If that's the case, the best thing is to be non-urgent but important part, which is your goals and planning. So if you sort your thoughts out, put those on a piece of paper and put those on 4 blockers, and you will see okay, it's not important, not urgent, that should be all distraction. You don't have to worry about that. So kind of put that things forward in order to make it even more precise thought process, what you should be working on, what should be, if you have to worry about only those things that's important but not urgent.
Right. So a good filter or a good mechanism to understand what's important in your life.
That's from 7 Habits, right?
Probably.
Yeah.
It's a very effective tool, though. I think.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Okay, we have some new faces. Can you mind introducing yourself?
Yash,
Yash, how do you do? Thanks for coming. Why are you coming today? Thank you for coming.
my mom asked me to come.
Oh, that's great. Thank you so much. Love that. Did you get anything out of class today?
A lot, yeah.
Okay, well, you're very welcome to come back next
Thank you.
week.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
We have some some returning faces,
Sonali. That's Sonali.
and then everybody here has been some returning faces.
Digesha.
Great to meet you. So, the purpose of this class is to increase our quality of life using Jain principles. And it's very easy to say and very hard to do. That's why we meet here each week, because we want to reinforce that. It's once you leave the door, you'll find that you'll forget everything you learned in the class. And do you play any sports?
Squash, badminton.
Okay, so you know what I mean when you can do the drill, right? And you can get it perfect like 80 times out of 100 in practice. But once you're in the game, it's totally different, right? It's even hard to remember that you were doing that, right? And applying it to the game is extremely hard. And that's how hard it is here. We can learn all we want. We can talk all we want. We feel good when we exit the class. But it's hard to do it out there. When you leave there, you're thinking about lunch, you're thinking about getting home, you're thinking about football, you're thinking about how I'm going to, get the best of my weekend before I have to go back to work on Monday. It's very hard. And I've never said that it wasn't hard. I'm telling you that it's going to be very hard. But the purpose of this class is to learn how we can increase the quality of our life using Jain principles. Any questions or comments? Thank you so much for your time this week. I really appreciate that.
Thank you.